I was standing in the pharmacy, holding a small orange pill bottle, when the pharmacist's expression changed from curious to horrified. "Where did you get these?" he asked urgently. "My daughter-in-law," I said. "She told me they're vitamins." He looked me straight in the eye. "Ma'am, someone is trying to kill you. My name is Eleanor Bennett, but everyone calls me Ellie. I'm 72 years old, and up until 6 months ago, I'd been living independently in my small craftsman-style house in the Sellwood neighborhood of Portland, Oregon for the past 15 years, ever since my husband Robert passed away from a sudden heart attack while mowing the lawn on a sunny Saturday afternoon in July. I'd been doing just fine on my own. Better than fine, actually. I had my routine, my life, my independence. Every morning, I'd wake up at 6, make myself a pot of strong coffee, and sit on my back porch watching the sun come up over the oak trees. I had my garden, rows of tomatoes and zucchini, and snap peas that I tended religiously. I had my book club that met every Thursday at the library, a group of 6 women I'd known for over a decade. I had my volunteer work at the Multnomah County Library, shelving books and helping patrons with the computers 3 days a week. I walked 3 miles every morning, rain or shine. And Portland has a lot of rain. My doctor said I had the heart and lungs of a woman 20 years younger. My blood pressure was perfect. My cholesterol was good. I took no medications except for a daily multivitamin and the occasional aspirin. I made my own meals, balanced and healthy. I paid my own bills on time, managed my own finances, drove my own car. I had friends, activities, purpose. I wasn't lonely. I wasn't struggling. I was living exactly the life I wanted to live. Then my son Michael called with an offer that seemed too good to refuse. It was a rainy November evening, the kind of rain that Portland does best, steady and cold and gray. I was sitting in my living room with a mystery novel and a cup of chamomile tea when my phone rang. "Mom, it's Michael. Do you have a minute to talk?" "Of course, honey. How are you? How's Patricia?" Michael was my only child, 45 years old, a successful accountant with his own practice. He'd married Patricia 8 years ago in a beautiful ceremony at the Piddock Mansion. I'd liked Patricia well enough at the time. She was quiet, reserved, but polite. She worked as a nursing assistant at a retirement home, which I'd thought showed compassion and patience. "We're good, Mom. Actually, Patricia and I have been talking about something, and we wanted to run it by you." "What's that?" "Well, we have that extra bedroom upstairs that we never use, the one with the attached bathroom. And Mom, Patricia and I have been worrying about you. You're getting older and you're all alone in that house. What if you fall? What if something happens and no one's there to help? We'd feel terrible if something happened to you." I'd laughed, genuinely amused. "Michael, I'm 72, not 92. I can take care of myself. I've been doing it for 15 years. "I know, Mom, and you've done an amazing job, but humor us, okay? Come stay with us for a while. Just try it out for a few months. If you don't like it, you can always go back home. We just feel so much better knowing you're safe and not isolated." I'd started to protest again when I heard Patricia's voice in the background, and then she was on the phone, her voice warm and encouraging in a way I'd never heard before. "Ellie, hi. I hope Michael isn't being too pushy, but we really have been worried about you. And honestly, the house feels so empty with just the two of us rattling around in it. I've always wanted to get to know you better, to have that mother-daughter relationship. Please say you'll at least think about it." Something in her voice touched me. She sounded sincere, vulnerable even. And maybe, just maybe, a small part of me was tired of eating dinner alone every night. Tired of having no one to talk to between Thursday book clubs and weekend phone calls with old friends. "Let me think about it," I said. "Give me a few days. I thought about it for a week. I made a list of pros and cons. I talked to Dorothy, my closest friend from book club, who said, Ellie, if you want to do it, but don't do it because you think you should. Do it because you want to. Did I want to? I wasn't sure. But Michael was my son, my only child, and he was asking me to be closer to him. Patricia was reaching out, wanting to build a relationship. How could I say no to that? So I called Michael back and said yes. The move happened quickly, just a week before Thanksgiving. Michael rented a U-Haul, and he and Patricia came to help me pack. We boxed up my clothes, my photographs, my favorite books, the quilt my mother had made me, the Afghan Robert's mother had crocheted. We left most of my furniture at the house. Just in case you want to come back, Michael said, though I noticed Patricia's expression tighten slightly when he said it. It's just a trial run, I kept saying, to them and to myself, just a few months to see how it goes. Patricia drove me to Beaverton in her white Lexus SUV, while Michael followed with the U-Haul. During the drive, she chattered about the house, about the neighborhood, about how excited she was to have me there. I grew up in a big family, she said, navigating through traffic. 5 kids, always noise and chaos. When I married Michael, and it was just the 2 of us, it felt so quiet, you know? I've been hoping we'd have kids, but it hasn't happened yet, so having you there, having family in the house, it's gonna be wonderful. I noticed she gripped the steering wheel tightly as she spoke, her knuckles white. Nerves, I thought. She's nervous about me moving in. Their house was in a development of newer homes, all variations on the same modern craftsman theme. Large lots, 2-car garages, perfectly manicured lawns. The houses were nice, but sterile, nothing like my neighborhood in Portland, with its old trees and quirky, individualistic homes. Patricia gave me the grand tour. The house was immaculate, not a single thing out of place. Granite countertops in the kitchen, gleaming hardwood floors, furniture that looked like it came straight from a Pottery Barn catalog. Everything coordinated, everything perfect. My room was upstairs, at the end of the hall. It was spacious and bright, with large windows overlooking the backyard. The walls were painted a soft sage green. There was a queen-sized bed, with a white duvet, a matching dresser, and nightstand, a comfortable reading chair in the corner. I decorated it myself, Patricia said, watching my face anxiously. Do you like? I wasn't sure what colors you'd prefer, so I went with something neutral and calming. It's lovely, I said, and it was. You didn't have to go to so much trouble. Nonsense. I want you to feel at home here. This is your space, Ellie, your sanctuary. She'd even put fresh flowers on the dresser, white lilies, that filled the room with a sweet, almost cloying scent. Those first few days were a whirlwind of unpacking and settling in. Patricia was attentive to the point of being overwhelming. She'd appear at my door multiple times a day, asking if I needed anything, if I was comfortable, if the room was too cold or too hot. I'm fine, I kept saying, but she'd linger, hovering, like she was waiting for me to need something. Thanksgiving came, and Patricia outdid herself. Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, 3 kinds of pie. The dining room table looked like something from a magazine. Michael's boss and his wife came over, and Patricia played the perfect hostess, charming and gracious. You must be so happy to have your mother-in-law living with you, the boss's wife said. Oh, I am, Patricia gushed, reaching over to squeeze my hand. Ellie is such a blessing. I don't know what we'd do without her. It should have felt warm. Instead, something about the way she said it made my skin prickle, but I brushed the feeling aside. I was being paranoid. She was being kind. The week after Thanksgiving, Patricia started her campaign of concern. Ellie, are you feeling okay? You look a little tired. I'm fine, just adjusting. Are you sleeping well? I could get you some herbal tea that helps with sleep. Really, I'm okay. You know, at your age, it's so important to take care of yourself. My mother started taking supplements in her 70s, and it made such a difference. She kept bringing it up, day after day. How tired I looked, how important it was to take care of my health, how she worried about me. Then one morning in early December, she appeared at my bedroom door, carrying a plastic pill organizer, the kind with 7 compartments for each day of the week. I've been doing some research, she said, setting it on my nightstand, and I put together a vitamin regimen for you. This is what women your age should be taking. Calcium for your bones, vitamin D for your immune system, B12 for energy, fish oil for your heart, and a probiotic for digestion. I looked at the organizer. Each day had 4 or 5 pills, in different colors and sizes. Patricia, that's really thoughtful, but I already take a multivitamin. Oh, but those cheap drugstore multivitamins don't have high enough doses to really make a difference. These are pharmaceutical grade supplements. Trust me, you'll feel so much better. Please, Ellie, for me, I'd feel better knowing you're taking care of yourself properly. She looked so earnest, so concerned, and it was just vitamins, right? What could it hurt? Okay, I said. Thank you. Her smile was brilliant. Wonderful. I'll bring them to you every morning with your coffee. You just relax and let me take care of you. And that's how it started. Every morning, Patricia would knock on my door at 7:30, carrying a small cup with 4 or 5 pills and a glass of water. She'd stand there, watching, until I swallowed them all. Good girl, she'd say, in a tone you'd use with a child or a pet. Now what would you like for breakfast? At first, nothing seemed different. I felt fine, normal, but Patricia had planted a seed, and now every time I felt the slightest bit tired or off, she was there to reinforce it. See, you do look tired. Good thing you're taking those vitamins. Your color's a bit off today. Let me make sure you're taking the right. Are you feeling okay? You seem a bit weak. Maybe you should rest more. The suggestions became a constant background hum. You're tired. You're weak. You need to take care of yourself. You're not as young as you used to be. By the middle of December, about 3 weeks after I'd started taking the pills, I noticed I actually was more tired than usual. I'd sleep for 8 hours and wake up feeling like I hadn't slept at all. Getting out of bed required effort. Moving through the day felt like wading through thick water. It's probably just the winter blues, I told myself. Less sunlight, colder weather. But it got worse. My appetite started to disappear. Patricia would make elaborate meals, roast chicken and vegetables, homemade soup, fresh bread, and I'd sit at the dinner table forcing myself to take a few bites while my stomach churned. You're not eating enough, Ellie, she'd say with concern, her eyes sharp and watchful. You need to keep your strength up. But I couldn't. Food tasted wrong, like cardboard or metal. The smell of cooking made me nauseous. I started pushing food around my plate, pretending to eat while really just moving things from one side to the other. Michael noticed. Mom, you've lost weight. Are you feeling okay? I'm fine, just not very hungry. Patricia jumped in before I could say more. She's been like this for days. I'm worried about her, Michael. Maybe it's a stomach bug. There's been something going around. Maybe we should take her to the doctor, Michael suggested. Let's give it a few more days, Patricia said quickly. No need to expose her to more germs at a doctor's office if it's just a virus. I'll keep an eye on her. I should have insisted. I should have demanded to see a doctor, but I was so tired, and the fog in my brain was getting thicker, making it hard to think clearly, hard to advocate for myself. The fatigue got worse. By early January, I was sleeping 12, 14 hours a day and still waking up exhausted. My legs felt heavy, like they were made of lead. Getting up to use the bathroom required planning and effort. Patricia had stopped asking me to come downstairs for meals, and instead she'd bring trays up to my room. You just rest, Ellie. I'll take care of everything. She'd sit on the edge of my bed, watching me eat, or try to eat. always watching, making sure I took my pills. Don't forget your vitamins, Ellie. They're so important. I'd swallow them without thinking, too tired to question, too foggy to wonder why vitamins would make me feel worse instead of better. The hair loss started in mid-January. I'd run my fingers through my hair and come away with strands. The shower drain was clogged with it. My pillow was covered with it every morning. I stared at myself in the bathroom mirror one morning and barely recognized the person looking back. My hair was thinning, showing patches of pink scalp. My face was gaunt, cheekbones jutting out sharply. Dark circles ringed my eyes, so deep they looked like bruises. My skin had a grayish tint, like old newspaper. I looked like a cancer patient. That thought struck me like lightning. I looked like the cancer patients I'd seen when Robert was dying, back when we spent so much time in hospitals and treatment centers. But I didn't have cancer. Did I? The fear was sharp and immediate. Maybe that's what this was. Maybe I was dying of cancer and didn't know it. Maybe Patricia had noticed symptoms I'd missed, and that's why she was being so attentive, so careful. Maybe she knew I was dying and was trying to make my last months comfortable. The thought terrified me, but it also made a horrible kind of sense. It would explain everything: the fatigue, the nausea, the hair loss, the weight loss. Classic cancer symptoms. That evening, when Michael came to check on me before bed, I asked him, "Michael, do you think I might be really sick? Like seriously sick?" He frowned. "What do you mean?" "Cancer?" I whispered. "Do you think I might have cancer?" His face went pale. "Mom, where is this coming from? Have you been having symptoms I don't know about?" I look terrible. I feel terrible. I'm losing my hair. What if something's really wrong?" He sat down on the edge of my bed, took my hand. "Mom, you've been under a lot of stress. Moving, adjusting to a new place. It's a lot of change. And you've been fighting this bug for weeks. But cancer? Don't you think that's jumping to conclusions? Maybe I should see a doctor. Get some tests run." "Okay, yes. Let's do that. I'll call tomorrow and make an appointment." But he didn't call. Or if he did, no appointment was ever made. Every time I asked about it, he'd say, "Patricia's handling it," or "We'll do it next week," or "Let's see if you feel better first." So looking back, I wonder if Patricia intercepted those conversations. If she told Michael not to worry, that she'd take care of it, that there was no need to bother a doctor yet. By late January, I could barely get out of bed. The room spun when I tried to stand. My hands shook constantly, a tremor I couldn't control. I'd forgotten how to do simple things, like what day it was, or what I'd eaten for breakfast. The fog in my mind was so thick now that thoughts emerged and disappeared before I could grab onto them. I'd start to say something and forget mid-sentence what I was talking about. I'd look at Michael and for a moment not remember his name. Just know that he was important, that I loved him. It was terrifying. One morning in late January, I woke up and couldn't feel my feet. I stared down at them, wiggled my toes, saw them move, but felt nothing, just numbness, like they belonged to someone else. Panic cut through the fog. This wasn't normal. This wasn't a virus, or stress, or adjustment. Something was seriously, fundamentally wrong with me. I managed to drag myself out of bed, holding on to the furniture. Each step was agony. My numb feet not cooperating, my legs weak and shaky. I made it to the bathroom and gripped the sink, staring at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back was a strange, gaunt, hollow-eyed, with thin, patchy hair and skin the color of old ashes. I looked like I was dying. I was dying. The realization hit me with crystal clarity. Whatever was happening to me, it was killing me, and no one seemed to care. Or rather, Patricia cared very much about making sure I took my pills, but not about actually helping me get better. My eyes fell on the pill organizer sitting on my bathroom counter. Patricia had filled it the night before, as she did every Sunday, 7 compartments, one for each day, 4 or 5 pills in each one. For the first time in months, I had a thought that pierced through the fog, like a beam of light. What if it's not vitamins? What if the pills were making me sick instead of making me better? It seemed impossible. Patricia was my daughter-in-law. She'd invited me into her home. She made me meals and brought me coffee and checked on me, constantly. Why would she hurt me? But the thought wouldn't leave. It nested in my brain, growing, expanding, pushing aside the fog. I picked up the pill organizer with shaking hands, opened Monday's compartment, stared at the pills, a white oval tablet, two pink capsules, a small blue pill. They looked professional, pharmaceutical, but were they vitamins? How would I know? I'd never questioned them before. I just trusted Patricia. Trust. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Patricia, coming to check on me, to bring me my morning dose. On pure instinct, I grabbed the pill organizer and shoved it into the pocket of my bathrobe. Then I stumbled back to bed, pulling the covers up to my chin just as Patricia appeared in the doorway. Good morning, Ellie. Her voice was bright, cheerful. How are we feeling today? Tired, I mumbled, which was true. Well, I have your vitamins right here. She held out her hand, 4 pills in her palm. These will help. I stared at the pills, at her smile, at the carefully arranged concern on her face. Actually, I think I want to wait a bit. My stomach's really upset this morning. Her smile faltered for just a fraction of a second, just a flash of something. Annoyance, anger, before it snapped back into place. The vitamins will help settle your stomach, Ellie. That's what the probiotic is for. Come on, you know you're supposed to take them first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. I need a few minutes. Ellie, her voice had an edge now. Take your vitamins. We stared at each other. In that moment, I saw something in her eyes I'd never noticed before. Something cold, something calculating. I'll take them later, I said. No, you'll take them now. Patricia, I said, I'll take them later. She stood there, her jaw clenched, the pills still in her outstretched hand. Then slowly, deliberately, she set them on my nightstand with a sharp click. Fine. But don't forget, you need them, Ellie. You need them to get better. The way she emphasized those words, the intensity in her eyes, sent a chill down my spine. She left, and I heard her footsteps going back downstairs. I waited until I heard the kitchen door close. Then I grabbed the pills from my nightstand and flushed them down the toilet. I spent the rest of that day in bed, the pill organizer hidden under my mattress. My mind felt clearer than it had in weeks, like a window had been wiped clean. I hadn't taken the morning pills, and already the fog was lifting. Just a little. What if Patricia was poisoning me? The thought seemed insane. She was a nursing assistant. She'd worked in healthcare. She'd married my son. She'd invited me into her home. But what if? I needed to know what was in those pills. I needed proof, but I was too weak to go anywhere. Too closely watched. Patricia checked on me every hour, bringing me water, adjusting my pillows, asking if I needed anything, always hovering, always watching, making sure I took my pills. That night, I pretended to sleep when Patricia brought my evening dose. She stood in the doorway for a long time, just watching me. I kept my eyes closed, my breathing even, until finally I heard her leave. I opened my eyes and stared at the ceiling in the darkness. Tomorrow I'd figure out what to do. The next morning, Patricia brought my coffee and pills. As usual, I palmed the pills when she wasn't looking, pretended to swallow, then flushed them as soon as she left. Each day I didn't take the pills, I felt a little bit better. Not much. The damage was already done, but the fog lifted incrementally. My thoughts became sharper. The nausea lessened slightly. I started to plan. 3 days after I stopped taking the pills, Patricia left the house to go grocery shopping. I'll only be gone an hour, she told me. Don't try to come downstairs, Ellie. You're too weak. You might fall. As soon as I heard her car pull out of the driveway, I forced myself out of bed. Every movement was agony. My legs trembled. My head spun, but I made it to my dresser. Pulled on real clothes instead of pajamas for the first time in weeks. Found my purse. Found the pill organizer I'd hidden under my mattress. I had a plan. A desperate, probably stupid plan, but it was all I had. There was a Walgreens pharmacy 2 blocks away. I'd seen it when Michael drove me through the neighborhood. If I could just get there, if I could just show someone these pills and ask if they were really vitamins, maybe I'd get answers. But 2 blocks might as well have been 2 miles. I could barely stand, let alone walk. I had to try. I made it down the stairs by gripping the railing and taking one step at a time, resting after each one. By the time I reached the bottom, I was covered in sweat and shaking all over. The front door felt impossibly heavy. The cold January air hit my face like a slap when I finally got it open. But it felt good, real. I was outside. I was doing something. The sidewalk stretched ahead of me, an impossible distance. I used mailboxes and fences to steady myself, stopping every few feet to catch my breath, to fight the dizziness, to keep going. People passed me. A woman jogging with her dog, a man getting his mail. They looked at me, this sick old woman stumbling down the sidewalk, but no one stopped. No one asked if I needed help. I kept going. It took me 30 minutes to walk 2 blocks. By the time I saw the Walgreens sign, I was at the end of my strength. My vision was tunneling. My legs were about to give out. But I made it. I pushed open the door, heard the cheerful electronic chime, felt the warmth of the store after the cold outside. The pharmacy counter was at the back, miles away. I held on to shopping carts, shelves, displays, pulling myself forward step by agonizing step. A young woman in a pharmacy tech vest appeared in front of me. "Ma'am, are you okay? Do you need help?" "Pharmacist," I gasped. "Need to see the pharmacist." She looked alarmed. "Of course. Let me get Dr. Kim. Here, sit down." She guided me to a chair near the consultation window. I collapsed into it, my whole body trembling. A moment later, a woman in a white coat appeared. She was in her 40s, with kind dark eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Her name tag read, Dr. Sarah Kim, Pharm DE. She took one look at me, and her eyes widened. "Ma'am, you need to go to a hospital. You look extremely ill." "No, please." I pulled the pill organizer from my purse with shaking hands. "I need you to look at these first. Please. My daughter-in-law says they're vitamins." Are they? Are they vitamins?" Dr. Kim took the organizer, her expression shifting from concern to confusion. She opened Monday's compartment, examined the pills, took them out, turned them over, looked at the markings. Her face went pale. "Where did you get these?" Her voice was sharp, urgent. "My daughter-in-law. She gives them to me every morning. She says they're vitamins, supplements, for my health. I've been taking them for almost 3 months." Dr. Kim looked at me, then at the pills, then back at me. Her hands were shaking slightly as she picked up each pill, examining them closely. "Ma'am, these are not vitamins." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "This white pill, this is methotrexate. It's a chemotherapy drug used to treat cancer and autoimmune diseases. This pink capsule is fluorouracil, another chemotherapy drug. This blue pill is cyclophosphamide, also chemotherapy." The room tilted. "What? Do you have cancer, Mrs. Bennett?" "Eleanor Bennett." No, I don't have cancer. I've never had cancer." Dr. Kim grabbed my hand, her expression intense. "Mrs. Bennett, these drugs are highly toxic. They're designed to kill rapidly dividing cells. That's how they fight cancer. But in someone without cancer, they damage healthy cells throughout the body. The side effects are severe: extreme fatigue, nausea, vomiting, hair loss, weight loss, immunosuppression, nerve damage, organ damage." She paused, looking at me closely, taking in my appearance. "You're showing every single symptom of chemotherapy poisoning." I couldn't breathe. The words weren't making sense. Couldn't make sense. But why? Why would she give me chemotherapy drugs? Dr. Kim's voice was gentle but firm. Mrs. Bennett, I don't know why, but I know this. Someone has been systematically poisoning you. Someone is trying to kill you. The fluorescent lights overhead seemed too bright. The floor seemed to rush up toward me. Mrs. Bennett, stay with me. I heard Dr. Kim calling out, felt hands catching me as I fell, heard urgent voices, the word ambulance, the sound of a phone being dialed, then darkness. I woke up in a hospital room, the beeping of monitors, the smell of antiseptic, the scratchy feeling of hospital sheets, bright lights overhead. Mom? Mom, can you hear me? Michael's voice. I turned my head, saw him sitting in a chair by my bed. His eyes were red and swollen. He'd been crying. Michael? My voice came out as a croak. Oh, thank God. He grabbed my hand. Mom, you're awake. You're okay. You're going to be okay. What happened? You collapsed at the pharmacy. Dr. Kim called an ambulance, and then she called the police. His voice broke. Mom, the pills Patricia was giving you, they weren't vitamins. Everything came flooding back. The pharmacy, Dr. Kim's horrified expression, the words I hadn't wanted to believe. Someone is trying to kill you. Where's Patricia? I asked. Michael's face crumpled. She's been arrested. Mom, the police searched our house. They found bottles of chemotherapy drugs hidden in her closet, prescriptions in fake names, medical records she'd forged, instructions on dosing, a timeline. She'd been planning this for months. The beeping of the heart monitor increased as my pulse spiked. Why? I whispered. Why would she do this? They're still investigating. But Mom, they found a life insurance policy on you, a big one. She took it out 3 weeks after you moved in, forged your signature. If you died, the money would have come to me. And then, he trailed off, couldn't finish. And then she would have gotten it from you, I said quietly. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. I brought you into that house. I convinced you to move in. I almost got you killed. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I squeezed his hand. You didn't know. Neither of us knew. A doctor came in then. A young woman with a professional, but kind demeanor. Mrs. Bennett, I'm Dr. Patel. I'm the oncology specialist who's been overseeing your case. How are you feeling? Like I've been hit by a truck. She smiled slightly. That's understandable. Miss Bennett, the blood work we ran shows toxic levels of multiple chemotherapy agents in your system. Methotrexate, fluorouracil, cyclophosphamide. You've essentially been undergoing aggressive chemotherapy for months without having cancer. Will I be okay? Is the damage permanent? Dr. Patel pulled up a chair. The good news is that you stopped taking the drugs before we reached the point of irreversible damage. Your blood counts are dangerously low, your liver and kidney function are impaired, and you're severely malnourished. But with treatment, with time, most of these things should improve. Most? The neuropathy in your feet and hands may take a long time to resolve, possibly months or even years. The hair loss is temporary. It will grow back. The organ damage should heal with proper care and medication. But Miss Bennett, I have to be honest with you. Another 2 or 3 weeks of this exposure, and we'd be having a very different conversation. The weight of those words settled over the room. You're very lucky, Dr. Patel continued. Lucky that you got suspicious when you did. Lucky that you had the strength to walk to that pharmacy. Lucky that Dr. Kim recognized those pills immediately. A lot of things had to go right for you to survive this. Lucky, that word again. There's something else, Dr. Patel said carefully. The police want to talk to you when you're feeling up to it. They have some questions about your daughter-in-law, and they want to know if you can think of anything that might help their investigation. I nodded. I'll talk to them. Detective Lisa Morrison arrived an hour later. She was a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She pulled up a chair next to my bed and opened a notebook. Mrs. Bennett, I know you've been through hell, but I need to ask you some questions about Patricia Collins. Can you walk me through when this started? I told her everything, from the phone call in November to moving in, to Patricia's increasing attention and concern, to the pills, to the slow decline in my health. I told her about Patricia's insistence that I take the pills, how she'd stand there watching until I swallowed them, how she'd discouraged doctor visits. Detective Morrison took notes, her expression growing darker. Mrs. Bennett, we believe this was a carefully planned murder attempt. Patricia worked as a nursing assistant for 5 years before marrying your son. During that time, 3 residents under her care at Riverside Retirement Home died unexpectedly. At the time, their deaths were attributed to natural causes, age, and declining health. But given what we now know, we're exhuming those bodies to test for toxic substances. The horror of it hit me. You think she's done this before? We think it's very possible. She was fired from her position at the retirement home, ostensibly for poor attendance. But one of her coworkers told us she'd raised concerns about Patricia's behavior, about how she was always volunteering to handle medications for certain patients, about how those patients seemed to decline rapidly under her care. Oh my God, there's more. We've been looking into Patricia's background. Her real name is Patricia Ann Bowman. She's changed her identity twice. Before she was Patricia Bowman, she was Ann Carpenter, and before that she was Sarah Zimmerman. Why would she change her name multiple times? Because everywhere she goes, people die. In Wisconsin, where she was Sarah Zimmerman, an elderly woman she worked for died and left her a substantial sum of money. In Ohio, where she was Ann Carpenter, she married a man 20 years her senior. He died 2 years later of what was called a sudden heart attack. She inherited everything. Then she came here, became Patricia Bowman, and got a job at Riverside. I felt sick. She's a serial killer. We believe so, yes. And you were going to be her next victim. Michael, who'd been sitting silently in the corner, made a choked sound. I married a serial killer. Detective Morrison turned to him. Mr. Collins, I need to ask you some difficult questions. Did you have any knowledge of what your wife was doing? No. Michael stood up, his voice breaking. I had no idea. I thought Mom was just... Patricia kept saying it was a virus, that she'd get better. I trusted her. God help me. I trusted her. Did you notice any changes in Patricia's behavior over the past few months? Michael ran his hands through his hair, thinking. She was stressed, more irritable than usual. She kept talking about money, about how we needed to save more, invest better. She'd been researching life insurance policies, said we needed to be prepared. I thought she was just being practical. Did you know she'd taken out a policy on your mother? No, I had no idea. She handled a lot of our finances, and I trusted her. He looked at me, his face anguished. Mom, I swear I didn't know. I know, honey, I said softly. I know. Detective Morrison closed her notebook. Mr. Collins, you're not under suspicion, but I need you to think anything unusual, anything that might help us build our case. We need to make sure she never has the opportunity to do this to anyone else. Over the next 2 weeks, I remained in the hospital while they flushed the chemotherapy drugs out of my system and worked to stabilize my condition. Michael visited every day, bringing flowers, books, updates on the investigation. Patricia had been denied bail. The evidence against her was overwhelming. In addition to the drugs they found in her closet, they discovered detailed notes on dosing schedules, calculations of how long it would take for me to die, research on symptoms and how to explain them away. She'd even practiced her grief. They found drafts of a eulogy she'd planned to give at my funeral, talking about what a privilege it had been to care for me in my final months. The exhumations of the 3 residents from Riverside Retirement Home revealed high levels of various toxic substances, insulin overdoses, digital ace poisoning, potassium chloride injections. Patricia had varied her methods, making the deaths look like natural cardiac events or diabetic emergencies. She was charged with 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. The DA was considering seeking the death penalty. My body slowly healed. My hair started growing back soft and white. My appetite returned, though food still tasted strange. The neuropathy in my feet began to improve, sensation returning in painful tingles and pins and needles. Patel said I'd make a full recovery, though it would take months. You're remarkably strong, Mrs. Bennett, physically and mentally. Most people wouldn't have survived what you went through. I'm stubborn, I said. My husband always said I was too stubborn to die. She smiled. Well, your stubbornness saved your life. When I was finally discharged from the hospital, Michael wanted me to come stay with him. He'd put the house in Beaverton up for sale immediately. Couldn't stand to be there anymore. I rented a condo in Portland, he said. Close to your old house. You can stay with me while you recover. Actually, I said, I want to go home, to my house. Mom, are you sure you're still weak? What if you need help? Then I'll call you, or Dorothy, or my neighbor, Mrs. Chen. Michael, I need my independence back. Patricia took so much from me, I can't let her take my home too. He understood. He drove me to my little house in Selwood, helped me inside, made sure I had everything I needed. The house was exactly as I'd left it, a bit dusty, but intact. My garden was overgrown, but salvageable. I'll come check on you every day, Michael promised. Just call first, I said, managing a smile. I'm tired of people hovering. Those first few weeks back home were difficult. I was weak, tired easily, had to rest frequently. But slowly, day by day, I got stronger. I started walking again, just to the end of the block at first, then a little further each day. I worked in my garden, pulling weeds, planting new seeds. Dorothy and the book club ladies brought meals, kept me company, made me laugh. Miss Chen from next door checked on me daily, brought me soup and tea. Michael came over for dinner once a week. We were rebuilding our relationship, learning to trust again. He was seeing a therapist, working through the trauma of realizing he'd married a murderer, of nearly losing his mother. How could I have been so blind? He asked one evening, sitting in my kitchen. There must have been signs, red flags. How did I miss them? Because she was good at hiding, I said. Because predators know how to blend in, how to seem normal. You're not responsible for her actions, Michael, but I brought her into your life, and I chose to move in with you. We both made decisions based on trust and love. That's not a weakness. That's what makes us human. The trial was scheduled for the following spring. I would have to testify, to relive everything that happened. The thought terrified me, but I knew I had to do it. For myself, for the 3 people she'd murdered, for any future victims we might prevent. In February, Dr. Sarah Kim called me. Mrs. Bennett, I've been asked to speak at a pharmaceutical safety conference about your case, about the importance of pharmacists in identifying medication abuse. Would you be willing to come speak as well, to tell your story? I hesitated. The idea of standing in front of strangers, talking about my attempted murder, made my stomach clench. But then I thought about all the elderly people living with family members they trusted, all the people who might be in danger right now, taking pills they'd been told were harmless, all the potential victims who needed to know it was okay to question, to ask, to demand answers. Yes, I'll do it. The conference was in March, at the convention center in downtown Portland. There were hundreds of pharmacists and pharmacy students in attendance. Dr. Kim spoke first, walking through the pharmacological details of my case, the specific drugs involved, the timeline of symptoms. Then it was my turn. I stood at the podium, looking out at all those faces, and I told my story, every detail, from the phone call in November to the moment I walked into the pharmacy holding that pill organizer. I trusted her, I said. I trusted her because she was family, because she seemed caring and concerned, because I couldn't imagine that someone would deliberately hurt me. But trust isn't always enough. Questions aren't disrespectful. Advocacy isn't rude. If something feels wrong, it probably is wrong. When I finished, the room was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then everyone was clapping. A standing ovation that went on for minutes. Afterwards, people came up to me, pharmacists who thanked me for sharing my story, students who said it would change how they practice, a few elderly people who said they'd been taking pills given to them by family members without questioning what they were. I'm going to ask my doctor to verify everything from now on, one woman said, gripping my hand. Thank you for having the courage to speak up. Doc Kim hugged me as I was leaving. You saved your own life that day in my pharmacy, but today, you might have saved dozens more. That evening, I sat in my garden as the sun set, thinking about everything that had happened, about how close I'd come to dying, about Patricia, sitting in a jail cell awaiting trial, about the 3 people she'd murdered who hadn't been as lucky as me. My phone rang. It was Michael. Mom, I just wanted to check in. How did the conference go? It went well. It was hard, but good. I think it helped people. I'm proud of you, Mom, for surviving, for speaking out, for being stronger than anyone I've ever known. I don't feel strong, Michael. Most days I feel like I barely survived. But you did survive. That's what matters. After we hung up, I sat there until the stars came out, thinking about survival, about strength, about the fact that I was still here, still breathing, still living. Patricia had tried to erase me, to make me disappear slowly, to make my death look natural and inevitable. She'd almost succeeded, but I'd questioned, I'd fought, I'd walked 2 impossible blocks when I could barely stand, and I'd survived. The trial came in May. I sat in the witness stand for 3 hours, answering questions from the prosecutor, from Patricia's defense attorney, looking at her sitting at the defense table in her neat suit, her hair pulled back, her expression blank. She showed no remorse, no emotion at all, just that same cold calculation I'd glimpsed that morning, when I'd refused to take the pills. When they asked me to identify the pills she'd given me, I looked at them spread out on the evidence table. White tablets, pink capsules, small blue pills, the things that had nearly killed me. Yes, I said clearly. Those are the pills my daughter-in-law told me were vitamins. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours, guilty on all counts, 4 murders including the attempted murder of me. The judge sentenced her to life in prison, without the possibility of parole. 4 consecutive life sentences. She would die in prison. As they led her away, she turned and looked at me, not angry, not sad, just curious, like she was studying an interesting specimen, like she couldn't quite figure out how I'd survived, when she'd planned it all so perfectly. I looked back at her steadily, until she was gone. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed me with questions. How did it feel to see her sentenced? Was I satisfied with the verdict? What message did I have for other potential victims? I thought carefully before answering. My message is this: trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, ask questions, demand answers. Don't let anyone make you feel like you're being difficult or paranoid for wanting to know what you're putting in your body. And if you're taking medications, any medications, know what they are and what they're for. Verify everything. One reporter asked, "Do you hate Patricia Collins for what she did to you?" I paused, considering. No, I don't hate her. I pity her. She's so empty inside that the only way she could feel anything was by taking life from others. That's not someone to hate. That's someone to pity and someone to protect society from. Michael drove me home after the trial. We didn't talk much, both of us exhausted and emotionally drained. When we pulled up to my house, he turned to me. Mom, are you going to be okay? Really okay? I thought about the question. Was I okay? I'd been poisoned, nearly killed, had to testify against my own daughter-in-law. I still had nightmares sometimes, still felt a flutter of panic when someone offered me pills, even when I knew they were safe. But I was alive. I was healing. I was home. Yes, I said. I'm going to be okay. We both are. He hugged me tight. I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart. That night, I sat in my garden, under the stars, with a cup of chamomile tea, real chamomile tea from tea bags. I'd opened myself, not something someone else had prepared. I'd become cautious in ways I never was before. But I was alive to be cautious, alive to drink tea in my garden, alive to watch the stars and feel the cool evening air on my skin. 6 months later, I was back to my old routines, walking 3 miles every morning, volunteering at the library, going to book club every Thursday. My hair had grown back, white and curly and thick. My weight had returned to normal. The tremor in my hands was gone. The neuropathy in my feet had resolved almost completely. I was dating someone, a widower I'd met at the library named Frank, which made me smile because my husband had been named Robert, and now I was seeing a friend. We went to movies, to dinner, took walks in the park. It was nice to have companionship again. Michael had met someone too, a kind woman named Jennifer, who worked as a teacher. He was taking it slow, being careful, but he was smiling again, laughing again. We were both learning to trust again, slowly but surely. One Thursday at book club, Dorothy brought up my case. Ellie, have you thought about writing a book about what happened? Your story could help so many people. A book? I'd never considered it. Think about it. You're an incredible storyteller, and people need to hear what happened, how you survived, how you fought back. I did think about it, and 6 months later I started writing, not just about the poisoning, but about everything, about trust and betrayal, about strength and survival, about the importance of listening to your instincts and asking questions. The book was published 2 years after Patricia's sentencing. It became a bestseller, which shocked me, but apparently people wanted to hear about the grandmother, who'd outsmarted a serial killer, who'd walked 2 blocks while dying to save her own life. I donated most of the proceeds to organizations that protect elderly people from abuse and fraud. I started speaking at conferences, at senior centers, anywhere people would listen. My message was always the same. You are never too old to advocate for yourself. You are never too weak to ask questions. You are never wrong to trust your instincts. Now, sitting in my garden, 5 years after everything happened, I think about how different my life could have been if I hadn't questioned those pills, if I hadn't found the strength to walk to that pharmacy, if Dr. Kim hadn't recognized those drugs. I would be dead. Patricia would have collected the insurance money, probably would have eventually killed Michael too, and moved on to her next victim. But I'm not dead. I'm alive. I'm 77 years old now, healthy, and strong and independent. I have friends, activities, purpose. I have a relationship with my son that's deeper and more honest than it was before. I have a partner who makes me laugh. I have my life back. Patricia is in prison, where she'll spend the rest of her days. The 3 people she murdered got justice, finally, and I get to tell their stories, to make sure they're not forgotten. People sometimes ask me if I'm angry, if I'm bitter about the year of my life that was stolen, the pain I endured, the trust that was shattered. I'm not. Anger and bitterness are poisons too, just slower acting than chemotherapy. I refuse to let Patricia poison me anymore. Instead, I choose gratitude. Gratitude for every morning I wake up, for every mile I walk, for every book I read and every friend I laugh with, and every sunset I watch from my garden. I choose to focus on the 2 blocks I walked when I could barely stand, on the pharmacist who cared enough to look closely at those pills, on the detective who pursued justice, on the son who forgave himself and learned to love again. I choose to remember that I survived, and survival, I've learned, is not just about staying alive. It's about choosing to live fully, fearlessly, joyfully, even after you've seen the worst that humanity has to offer. It's about taking back your power from the people who tried to take everything from you. It's about walking 2 impossible blocks and knowing that you can do anything. My name is Eleanor Bennett. I'm 77 years old. 5 years ago, my daughter-in-law tried to murder me with chemotherapy drugs disguised as vitamins, but I'm still here, and every day I'm here is a victory.